Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Hayes here with another video. Today we're going to focus on semicolons for today's lesson. It is a example of punctuation that students either do not know how to use or have never even tried to use before. And it's really important because it's in the Common Core 8th grade standards. It's something that we look out for, especially with this type of longer writing. And so semicolons can be a really purposeful punctuation mark to use for you in the near future. And so let's go over some of the reasons why we use it and how we can use it in today's lesson. First of all, why use a semicolon? What's the point? Well, there's kind of two main reasons why you should. One is it adds variety to your sentence structure. If your sentences are kind of in the same format over and over again, it can bore the reader. And so adding a semicolon changes things up a bit visually and just gives the reader a different type of flow when they're reading your essay. It's important for a variety of sentence structures. Two, it draws attention to the relationship between two ideas. If two ideas are connected by a semicolon, in the reader's mind, they're going to say, okay, these two things are connected. I can associate these two together. And that's really important as well at certain times in an essay. So those are the reasons why we use them. When should we use one? Well, these two might seem like polar opposites, but actually both can be applicable with semicolons. One is to break up short, choppy sentences, kind of like we talked about with the sentence structure variety. If you have those same short, choppy sentences over and over again, it's going to be tough to read. And then secondly, it can fix a run-on sentence, one that's going on way too long. How do I change this besides just adding a period somewhere? Well, another way is to use a semicolon, as long as you're following some specific rules. We've got two rules that are musts for using a semicolon. They're non-negotiable. So you've got to have these two things checked off in order to use a semicolon in your writing. The first, if you are going to join two ideas with a semicolon, they must be related. That falls into one of the two reasons why we use it, to draw attention to that relationship between two ideas. They must be two related thoughts. If they do not connect, you have to stick with a period. For example here, Mr. Hayes' favorite food is ribs. He ate them for his birthday. Those two thoughts are directly connected. I'm talking about ribs here and how I ate them for my birthday. Ribs on both sides of the semicolon. They're directly related. Semicolon is good. But Mr. Hayes' favorite food is ribs. His birthday's in November. That doesn't quite fit because I mentioned favorite food being ribs over here and then just talk about the November birthday. On the right side of my semicolon, there's no mention of the ribs. On the left side, there's no mention of the birthday. Even though Mr. Hayes is the topic of both, it's not related directly enough. This would not be a place where you want to use a semicolon. Instead, make sure those two thoughts are directly related and connected. The second rule is both sides of the semicolon must be complete sentences. We talked about complete sentences yesterday with the fanboys and whether we need a comma there or not, depending on if there's a complete sentence. Remember, a complete sentence has a subject, that person, place, or thing, and that person, place, or thing must be doing something, right? There must be a verb as well. So it has to have a subject and what they're doing, the predicate. So would these work? This would. Back when I was in middle school, we had 44-minute periods. The day went much faster. On both sides, I have a complete sentence. I being the subject here, was being the verb, and clearly there's a predicate. Well, what about? I was in middle school, we had 44-minute periods. We're good. The day went much faster. The day is the thing. It's the subject. Well, what about the day? The verb is went. It went much faster. We're good on both sides. Semicolon works. But here, back when I was in middle school, we had 44-minute periods, slow classes. Well, what about slow classes? That can be a subject or a predicate, but it can't be both. That's not a complete sentence, so this semicolon would not work. So make sure when you're revising and using semicolons, those two ideas are related on both sides and there's a complete sentence on both sides. Otherwise, it's not going to work, okay? Let's practice a little bit here. Is a semicolon used correctly in these five? Well, let's talk it through. Michael Orr's draft pick was traded from the Patriots to the Ravens. Successful career. What do you think? Well, are the two ideas related? Kind of. We're not really sure here what's going on with successful career, but we think it's talking about Michael, so maybe. But the bottom line is successful career is not a complete sentence. He had a successful career would work, but there's no subject here. So this semicolon has to go. I've got to do something different with this sentence. It wasn't until Sonny got permission from his mother that he really pursued rockets. She was the most supportive mother in Colwood. Yes or no? Well, mother mother, same topic on both sides. So these two things are related, and it is a complete sentence on both sides. Got Sunny as a subject, got as a verb, she as a subject, was as the verb. It describes what that verb is and that subject is doing with a complete predicate. Check, check. 2, I can keep. 3, the city of Harlem was one of tremendous spirit in the 1930s. That looks good. Walter dealt with a speech impediment at school. Well, doesn't look like these two thoughts are directly related. I don't even bring up Walter at all in the first part of this sentence. So these two things seem too separate. Even though they're complete sentences, they're too separate. Semicolon would not work here. Jacqueline moved frequently from South Carolina to New York. That looks good. This caused a clear identity crisis, whether she considered herself a Southerner or not. Complete sentence on both sides, both talking about Jacqueline. I can keep 4. 4 looks good. The movie Line gave Saru an even bigger platform to tell his story. It made $140 million and was a critical success. That looks good as well. Okay, so those are my examples here on semicolons. Again, make sure complete sentences and the two thoughts are related. Okay, now I look at my own essay here. What can I do as I look at a paragraph and ask myself, where would a semicolon fit? How could I actually pull this off in my writing? Well, I'm going to go edit here so I can actually make some changes. And I only have a small snippet of my body paragraph here, but a huge body paragraph of CQA would have been way too long to even look at for this video. So I boiled it down to just part of my analysis. So Junior's freshman season at Riordan begins with a much anticipated return to the reservation to face his old classmates. This includes his former best friend, Rowdy. Rowdy is known for his violent and vengeful tendencies. Nothing wrong with those sentences, but these two, I'm getting into short, choppy territory. And I'm talking about Rowdy in both cases, so this would be a great opportunity to use a semicolon. So instead of this includes his former best friend, Rowdy, I could get rid of this. And because I already said Rowdy, I don't need them back to back. The reader knows what I'm talking about, so I can just say he, and now I'm good. This includes his former best friend, Rowdy. That's a complete sentence. He is known for his violent and vengeful tendencies. That's also a complete sentence. I've got this, which is referring to the return. Includes is my verb. What does it include? Rowdy. So this is a complete sentence. He is known for his violent and vengeful tendencies. He is my subject. What about he is known for his violent and vengeful tendencies? Both sides are talking about Rowdy. This would be an example of a properly used semicolon. Let's look for one more because I have to do 2 for my essay. You will have to do 2 as well. During the game and prompted by the cruel actions of the well-penned crowd, Rowdy throws a wild elbow at Junior's head, knocking him unconscious and giving him a serious concussion. After Junior's parents leave the hospital, Riordan loses the game handily. Junior is visited by his basketball coach, whose compliment during tryouts gave Junior the confidence to prove himself worthy of making the varsity team. And the coach agrees to stay up all night with Junior, who offers more words of encouragement and wisdom. I'm out of breath at the end of that sentence. So I know this is a run-on because I've got way too many clauses here separated by commas, and it just takes too long to read. This seems like I'm dragging on way too long with this runaway sentence. So this would be another place where I could look for an opportunity to use a semicolon. So let's get one complete sentence down and then put in a semicolon after that first sentence. Junior is visited by his basketball coach, whose compliment during tryouts gave Junior the confidence to prove himself worthy of making the varsity team. That's a complete sentence, so I'll put it there. And the coach agrees to stay up all night with Junior, who offers more words of encouragement and wisdom. Well, all I have to do is make one little change here. I know we shouldn't start a sentence with and. I know that from prior knowledge, so I can just get rid of that. And now I'm good. I've got this sentence here, which is complete, because I already read through in my head. I've got the subject of Junior, and he's visited by his basketball coach. This is definitely a good sentence. And then I've got this here. The coach is the subject. What does the coach do? The verb agrees. Agrees to do what? To stay up all night with Junior, who offers more words of encouragement and wisdom. Looks good to me. So now I've tweaked both a short, choppy series of sentences with a semicolon, and now this one is a run-on sentence that I've made into a complete sentence using the semicolon as well. So as you can see, there's more than one way to use a semicolon, both with choppy sentences and to fix some run-ons as well. So I'd like you to try to do this today. I'd like you to try to do this today on your essay. Look for 2 places that you can use a semicolon. I, of course, will have these resources up on the module as well if you'd like to review, the purpose of them, when we use them, the rules, go through some of these examples for practice, take a look at mine that are in bold. This will all be up there if you'd like to use them. But all you have to do is simply follow the checklist for today's module. Take a look at that TED Ed video on semicolons. You're obviously watching this one right now. Add those 2 to your essay, and then you can spend the rest of the time devoted to ELA, to reading. Complete a reader response maybe at home today if you've been falling behind on that independent reading log, or just relax and enjoy a good book. I'm losing my voice, so I'm out. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.